Greetings and salutations, everyone. I do hope everyone is doing well, and welcome to tonight's second half. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click the bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment, share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. And now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this second half, shall we? All right, so I received a phone call from a subscriber today, and they reached out and said, hey, I heard about the loss of your godmother last week, and I just wanted to send my condolences to you. Now, not only was she my godmother, but she was my great aunt, and practically raised me when I was a kid because I was a single child. Both my parents worked. And she'd just been there all my life, and as respectful and what I was brought up to do is I would go and visit her once a week or, every couple of days and spend, about an hour with her, watch a movie, watch a TV show, something, check on her, just make sure she's okay. But this person reached out to me, and it just really made me realize how amazing humanity is, because this poor man had gone through the ringer with the U.S. government, dogmen, cover-ups, lies, and it's tragic. So I wanted to share his experience with everyone again, because it is one of those experiences you just don't soon forget. All right, guys, back in October of 2023, I had a subscriber reach out to me. Actually, it was October 22nd and 25th. I put this upload out on the 28th in regards to a subscriber who lost his entire family due to a dogman years and years ago. This poor man has just lost it all. He and I really hit it off when we talked. He didn't know how to take me at first because, 4 or 5 years of me saying the shall we, he hated that. And Jesse just gave me a chance and shared his really horrific experience. Well, I'm sitting here and I was actually eating some White Castle sliders, just relaxing. And because I just every once in a while I take a break and I watch a little bit of The Pacific or Band of Brothers or whatever. And I get a call, and I almost didn't answer it because I didn't recognize the number. And I answered it, and it was Jesse. And he said, "Brother, I got to share something with you." And I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's, he sounded ramped up like I do right now, because I am just shocked at the news that he shared with me. So 35 years ago, Jesse lost it all. His son, wife, life, everything. The only thing he got was loss and no acknowledgement. Ever. Treated like absolute dirt. He calls me and he says, I don't know if this has anything to do with me sharing that information with you on the channel or what, but it's been since 1988 and I have not heard or gotten any kind of notifications or anything, hey, we're sorry, hey, yada, yada. He said, I was going to the bank today because yesterday was President's Day. He said, I hadn't been to the bank since like last week. He said, I was going to go to the store and get some cigarettes and some gas. So I was going to pull out some money. And instead of having X amount, that X amount was $100,000 more than X amount. And he said to the teller, when he gets his receipt, because he takes what he wanted out, like $50, $100, whatever. The teller gives him his receipt. He looks at his balance and he's like, something's up. I have $100,000 more than I should in my bank account. And the teller said, well, no, that's your money. It was deposited in your account. And he said, well, what for what? What do you mean? And the teller says, all right, there's a few people behind you. Go over there and I'll have the branch manager talk to you, whatever. And the woman comes over, sits down with Jesse, and she's like, what's the problem, Mr. Blank? And he said, well, there's $100,000 extra in my bank account that I know is not mine. Where did it come from? So she takes him over to her little cubicle area and types in his account, and she turns her screen and she says, well, there was a deposit made 2 weeks ago, sir, from the Social Security Department. And apparently it is a Social Security LSDP, or lump sum death payment. And he just stopped. And he goes, are you sure that is for me? For, whatever? He goes, because, my family, this has been, it's been years. And she said, no, it's definitely yours. It's, attached to your Social Security number, attached to your bank account. And it is yours. And he has no idea because, like I said, since 1988, he has gotten nothing except bad breaks. And he said, I don't know if it was because I shared and someone heard this or what. He said, but this is amazing. And he's leery. He's like, I don't know if I should spend it, if I should buy a new truck. What should I do? I don't know. I said, dude, buy a new truck. Screw it. So for those of you who don't know the experience, This is Jesse's experience. He reached out to me in October of 2023. October 22nd was the first day this man reached out to me. And what an amazing and spiritually strong person to just keep on living. This gentleman sent me an email on the 22nd, and I responded back on the 25th. He then emailed me back and said, I'd really like to talk with you. Here's my phone number. Let's set up a time and date. So we set up this evening, which it's Friday, the 27th. And we spent about 4 hours on the phone together. And I'm going to lay it all out for you. And it was probably one of the hardest phone conversations I ever had in my life. So the man his name is Jesse. That is his real name. And I will not share his last name. He is born and bred West Virginian. Wife, son, 1988. He lived in a very poverty-stricken area. It was hard to make ends meet, but he did. He worked countless hours, odd jobs here and there, doing whatever he needed to do for his wife and son. He had bought a home from his grandmother, and he bought his grandmother's home. His wife worked at a grocery mart. This is about 2 hours after the conversation, so I'm a little shaky still. And those of you who read the community post know what I'm talking about. This is literally the hardest conversation I ever had. I had tears welling up most of the conversation with him. And a lot of laughs too, actually. It was an emotional conversation with Jesse. So 1988, his son is 9 years old. And which is crazy because in 88 I was 12. So we were about pretty close to the same age. And because he worked so much and so many hours doing whatever, garage work, farm work, just so he made sure that his family had what they needed, and the little bit of creature comforts they could afford. When he had time off, he would spend it usually camping with his wife and kid, his son. And because he felt like that was the best chance of bonding, teach him how to fish, teach him how to track, teach him, just basic getting outdoors, breathing the fresh air, getting away from, just the cartoons. And, it was well before the internet. And they had this little area that they would go to along this little creek that was right on the West Virginia, Pennsylvania border. Marshall County, West Virginia, and the Rich Hill Township, Pennsylvania. Now, there's also a wildlife management area out there, and it's not really illegal and not really legal to camp there, but different times. We're talking 35 years ago, and so it wouldn't be like nowadays where NCON or DEC, state trooper, whoever would come in and be like, you got to get out of here. You're going to jail. This was different, and so they set up camp. It was the summer of 1988. They set up camp. It was him, his son, and his wife. And first and foremost, he has only shared this with a very select few people. His wife took her life in 1997 because of the hardships and trauma that was endured after this camping trip. His family knows about it, obviously, and a very few select friends. So he really had, he hated me. He said it right out for the first 5 minutes of our conversation. I really hated you, Jeff. I hated how you were upbeat and the shall we and this and that. He said, but I watched other channels. I'd jump over to your channel every once in a while, just to hear what you were doing, hear some information, this and that. And after listening to you and getting past the shall we and the upbeatness and this and that, he said, I really felt like you were a decent individual. Then, of course, he heard about me having custody of my daughters and raising the girls by myself and this and that. And he said, it took me a long time to even want to even reach out to anybody. He goes, but I never thought it would be you. And which was, how do you respond to that, right? So anyway, he listens to channels, but he doesn't listen pretty much to the people that are talking, the hosts or whatever you want to call us, researchers. I'm a researcher. I view myself first and foremost as a researcher. The first night they are set up, they are pretty much right against the West Virginia, Pennsylvania border. Probably could have spit across it. Probably like 40 feet from this little creek. And this spot they've been going to this spot for a very long time. It's not anything new for them. He used to go to this spot before his son was born. And there's always been this kind of talk amongst his family about the Dogman. They never called it Dogman. They called it werewolf. And he never really thought they transformed because, if you think about it, a transformation is very, very unlikely. Muscles would be destroyed, bone structures. But anyway, that's just what they called it. They didn't have a name. They didn't have Dogman. It was a werewolf. They'd hear him out in the woods or catamount. And his family knew, he had been warned, but he had never seen anything. So they set up camp. He had an old kind of beat up truck, and it had one of those back shelves, kind of where you could open the tailgate and then open the hatch, and you could go in there and not get wet. I don't know what they're called, cabs, and they would put their son in there camping. You know, he'd have his sleeping bag. They'd lay like an egg crate out, put his sleeping bag in there, and they'd store stuff just because they felt it's safer him being up. They could shut the tailgate. Of course, their tent is right close to the truck. They had, you know, collapsible table. When they went camping, you know. They didn't want to eat on the ground. Of course, they weren't rich, but they had what they needed and a little bit of what they wanted. They were comfortable when they camped. So the first night went real smooth. They got there and set up, did a little fishing, and they had whatever. He doesn't remember, obviously, what they ate, but they had probably hot dogs or hamburgers or something, and went to bed. And the next day, it's a beautiful Saturday morning, and the son wakes up the mom and dad, says, you know, what are we doing today? Where can we go fishing? Can we do this? Can we do that? You know, just full of energy. And so they have breakfast and they start, you know, the day. He says, let's go for a little hike. You know, we'll check out the area, see what's changed since we've been here last summer, you know. And so they do. Just the son and the dad go out, and they're probably away from camp. The mom, you know, sat back. She's reading a book, you know, getting out of the house and, you know, getting outside, getting some fresh air. Not really getting away from her son, but, you know, her son's with her husband and they're having fun. So she doesn't have to worry about the young boy. So she's probably back at camp reading and this and that. Well, when they end up coming back, the son and dad, Jesse, his wife is just shooken right up. And he says, you know, Carol, what is wrong with you? What you're pale white. You look like you saw a ghost. And she's insisting that they leave. She's like, I want to leave. I don't feel safe here. This is 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You know, it's not even, we're talking 4-5 more hours till dark. And she is trembling. Now, they apparently went away from the Pennsylvania border and went up into this kind of like little area where the creek widens out pretty close to the wildlife management area. She had been cleaning up camp, getting some water from the creek, getting some dishes done, and she, on the Pennsylvania side by the creek, observed this large wolf. It was quadruped, but it was the size of a donkey. You know, not as big as a horse, but not as small as the biggest dog. So in between, a donkey. And it doesn't do anything. It just watches her from the opposite side of the creek on the opposite side of the border, which is an imaginary line, and it kind of watches her as she's gathering this water and kind of just turns and takes off into the woods of Pennsylvania. She immediately runs back to her camp and is just waiting for her son and husband to get back to camp so they can pack up and leave. Jesse then convinces her to stay. It was probably just a wolf. Probably wolves came down from, the Appalachia down north, from north. Who knows? Obviously it didn't come into our camp and it didn't attack you, but don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. Well, his wife could see something in this wolf's, air quotes, eyes that just pointed intelligence. And that's what scared her the most, was the intelligent look in its eyes and then its size. So Jesse convinces her that it's good, they're fine, not to worry about it. We've been here before. Our son was born together. We'll be coming long after he's graduated from school, and this is our spot. We're not going to get scared off. It's a wolf. So a couple hours goes by. The tension just kind of dies down. She didn't forget about it, but it's now kind of in the back of her mind. Jesse really didn't pay much mind to it because he didn't see it. He believed his wife, but he didn't see it, so he was not really mindful of it. He had a firearm with him. He he wishes he had brought in a different firearm with him, but he did have a firearm with him. Just not as powerful as it should have been. And he had just brought something for snakes. And if, he needed to scare off something, he could just shoot in the air or at it if it was a wild animal and scare it. He had a little .22 pistol. Because once again, he and his wife had been coming here for years. The son is 9, and they'd been coming here probably 12, 13 years prior, or not prior, but 4 years prior. So at least 12 or 13 years now, and never had anything, never saw any people, never had a thing go wrong. So she's doing a little better now. It's in the back of her mind. They're having, listening to the radio. The son's doing his marshmallows. And, just after dinner, just hanging out. They've got a 5-gallon bucket that they'd put their silverware and camping plates in that had some water in it to let it soak. Jesse says, I'll be right back. I'm going to go get some more water. and we'll get these dishes done. After the little guy's done doing his marshmallows, he can hit the hay, and we'll have a couple of cocktails by the fire, and we'll enjoy ourselves and maybe have a little quiet time to ourselves, me and you. And hint, hint. And she said, yeah. And so get him ready for bed, and so he goes down to the creek and gets some water, some fresh water, to heat up and do the dishes in this 5-gallon bucket. As he's walking out towards this creek, it's still Saturday evening, about 9 o'clock. He can hear kind of something in front of him, but off in the distance, rather large, almost kind of mimicking his steps or walking with him, but in front of him, kind of watching every move that he makes, and he feels it. And he sees off in the distance these kind of orangish, fiery eyes, he says. And he really can't distinguish where it is, because the creek kind of meanders through this area of West Virginia and then into Pennsylvania, and then meanders back into West Virginia. So he gets his water and he's like, what the hell is that? I've never seen anything like that out here. And he, like I said, doesn't really pay it any mind, because he's not scared off. He's been here. He goes back to camp and doesn't say a thing to anyone. Just kind of forgets about it. He's thinking, hey, we'll get the kid put to bed, have a couple of cocktails, and we can unwind and just relax and listen to the radio. And that's eventually what they start doing. And he has, a drink. Him and his wife are sitting by the fire, and the tailgate's closed. The cab, kind of upper part is open, so some air can get in. But when they go to bed, they're going to close it and latch it, so the little boy is safe. As they're sitting there by the fire, they're kind of propped up against this like log thing, and he can see the eyes again, these just fiery orange eyes out in the distance, and they would be looking towards the Pennsylvania side of their camp. And he says, I don't mean to alarm you, but do you see the eye shine out there? And she says, yeah, what is that, Jesse? And he's like, I don't know. I think we're okay. We're fine. We've never had anything happen. Let's just, if by chance it starts coming closer and it acts in a violent way, get in the back with our son. I'll close you guys in there and we'll drive out of here, and I'll come back the next day for everything that we left. I'll quick throw the water from the bucket on the fire, and we're gone. So nothing happens from that point till they go to bed. Nothing. They see it kind of move back and forth. Every once in a while, they don't see it, and then pop, the eyes are there again. Almost like it blinked, or it moved and watched something else, whatever. They go to bed. About an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours into them finally zonking off, his wife wakes him up because she can hear some kind of movement outside in their camp area, and they can hear, or she can hear, this kind of heavy panting. He explained it to a dog on a hot summer's day, panting, but if that dog was in a kind of an echoey room, it was very loud, and it, wherever it was, because it had been on like one side, they could hear it walking at different locations of their small little camp setup that they had. But it seemed like this panting noise was right on top of them. Like it would be 20, 25, 30 feet from their tent. And then, 5 minutes later, 15 feet behind their tent, which would put it closer to the truck. But it still sounded the same. The panting still sounded the same, like it was right on top of them. He yells out, yeah, get out of here, thinking it's coyote, or this large wolf-like dog thing that his wife saw. They don't hear it. They don't hear any noise. They kind of hear like this scuttle and nothing. So he's tired. She's tired. He falls asleep like the typical man, he said. And of course, she stays up listening just to make sure, she's in mama bear mode at this point. And she doesn't hear anything. So they're both now asleep, and morning hits. They get out of their tent, and he starts looking around the campsite for prints. Like, I want to see these. If there's a coyote or whatever, I would like to see their paw prints. And of course, they check on their son, and he's still asleep. They got up at like 6. They're up early because they were, scared. When he finds the tracks, they are about the size of a medium-sized skillet. Like a 10-inch skillet. He covers kind of them up with sand from the ground and doesn't say anything to his wife. Just, we've got today, tonight, and we're leaving tomorrow morning, afternoon. Let's enjoy the last day and night of our trip, because it's going to be a while before I get any more free time. And he had contracts and stuff. Like I said, he did odd jobs. He'd work with garages doing work. He had a lot of like land maintenance and stuff. He really at the time was a kind of a jack of all trades, and teaching himself as he went along. Whatever he hadn't learned from, older relatives and stuff. So he just wants to make the best of the day. And little boy gets up, has breakfast. What are we doing today again, Dad? What are we doing again? Yada, yada. You know how little kids are. So the plan of the day was to go fishing and, have mom come, have a kind of a fish dinner tonight, eat what they catch, just have a good night, have a good day and a good last night. Something, they kind of have a routine of what they did every year. They end up going up. He makes the worst decision of his life at this point, and his wife is set on one side of the creek, because if you go down by where their truck is and their camp is, you can cross over pretty easily, and then follow the creek with the other, him and his son on the other side, so she can watch them and still be close to camp. They go on the other side there, and he sets his son up on this like little kind of crook in the creek. And he's probably a good 100 feet from his son. His wife's right across, no less or no more than 50 feet. And they're all fishing. They can communicate, talk, yell, the little boy yells, I got something. And, the day went on like that. And about an hour before they were going to call it quits, the wife is now calm because there hadn't been anything strange. It's almost like everything was just falling into place for the last good night. He casts out, and as he casts out, he wants to look and see what his son's doing. And his son is turned the opposite way. His pole's on the ground. Facing the creek. He's turned around from the creek, but his pole's laying just right on the ground. He kind of yells, hey, pick up your pole. If you get a bite, it's going to drag your pole in the water and you're going to lose your pole. And his son doesn't respond. And he's just like looking at something, kind of moving his head. And he looks across the creek and he sees his wife stand up and start to walk in a way that she could be closer to her son, but the creek is separating them, and where this creek is, it's now deeper and wider, and it would take her more time to get to him. And he sees this look of fear on her face. And he then gets up, drops his pole, unclips his gun out of his holster, and starts to kind of walk, because he now sees the wife. He's now concerned because her eyes are fixed on their son. He can't see because of the position the creek goes. And he starts walking towards where his son is. She screams this blood curdling scream, and all you see is this large bipedal Dogman come running out of the woods, and it grabs the little boy and picks him up like a football player would a ball. Very quickly, the little boy is struggling. He's now running. The wife is running kind of at a point to meet their kid. No sooner does the Dogman have the little boy in this kind of scooped position, kind of like holding a football, like a football player would, it then drops to a all four position, but it's now only on three legs, still holding the little boy in the same kind of setting in the crotch of its, arm. And it takes off running. The little boy is screaming. He's yelling. She's screaming. She's, running across the water. She's, it's deep, not deep, but, 4 or 5 feet deep at that point. Maybe 10 feet wide. By the time he was where their son was standing, this creature was out of sight. And they could hear their son scream for a couple of more, seconds, maybe a minute. And then it was dead silent. Just dead silent. No wind, no squirrels, not even the creek, he said. He said it was almost like time stood still and everything was quiet. His wife, of course, is hysterical. We need to, get our son Jesse. What the hell was that? Is he okay? They make the decision to have her take the truck and notify. Once again, it's before cell phones. To get somewhere to notify the police department, whoever they need to notify. And he'll stay behind tracking this thing that has his son. Hours go by. West Virginia State Police are on the scene. Pennsylvania State Police are on the scene. Department of Conservation is on the scene. They've located some tracks. The West Virginia state trooper, one of the state troopers, comments that that's one hell of a big track. What the hell did you guys see? Tell us what you saw. And the husband, Jesse, says, if I tell you, you're not going to believe me. But I got to tell you because you've seen these tracks. And he tells the story to the West Virginia State Trooper. He's then pulled aside. It's almost like the search for the little boy stops for a second. Not just a second, longer than a second. Because now the state trooper is like, I don't buy this. Are you on drugs? Are you drinking? Were you drinking? This, and that. Let's talk to your wife. Carol proceeds to say, word for word, what happened? Now, the state trooper has already spoken to the Pennsylvania state trooper, and it's like they're looking at these parents like they did something wrong. So about an hour goes by. We need to find our son. We need to figure out what you did to your son first, is said. They're brought to the police station. There's still people searching. Department of Conservation, Ohio State Police, and West Virginia, or not Ohio, excuse me, Pennsylvania State Police, West Virginia, and they're back at, a station getting questioned like they did something to their son. Probably dark now. There's a call over the radio. They found the little boy. I won't get into details, but he was not alive. He partially consumed. A lot of soft tissue was consumed. And a lot of weird tracks around the body. And the Pennsylvania State Police are communicating with the West Virginia State Police. Like, we've never seen anything like this. This is horrendous. There's no way a human could do this to another human, let alone a father and mother do this to their son. This is gruesome. The wife is hysterical. She is then brought to the hospital and put on a 72-hour psych hold by the West Virginia State Police. He's handcuffed and brought to the location. The body's not there because by then they had already moved the body. And it was almost like torture for this man. He kept repeating what he saw. It came from the woods. It grabbed my son. It scooped him up and cradled him in one arm and dropped to 3 legs because one had my son in it and ran away. So imagine this. Your wife has now been committed by the West Virginia State Police on a psych hold. And you are handcuffed, put in a room, unable to see your son, the last thing you saw was this creature grab him. And 5 or 6 hours later, 2 gentlemen come in nondescript clothing, like khaki pants and like a kind of a flannelish button up tucked in, and proceed to question Jesse for hours. What did you see? What did it look like? Where did it run to? Where were you? Where was your wife? This, and that. Difference between these 2 men questioning him than the state trooper that was questioning him was he got the feeling like these men knew what the hell was going on. They go, apparently he doesn't know after the questioning is done. They then go to the hospital. He doesn't know this at the time. He's only, he's piecing this together after all of this, and talks to the wife. And they come back and say, listen, your son was taken by a black bear. He was mauled. It's an unfortunate accident. And if you say anything other than what you are told right now, we will make it look like you did this. We will tell the public that you are an alcoholic, that you abused your wife and abused your son prior to, and you killed him, and you will go to jail. You will go to prison. Unless you go along with the story we are telling you what happened. Your son was taken, mauled by a bear. You had a .22, and you couldn't stop it. He couldn't deal with what was going on and had to go along with saying that a bear did this to his son because he was afraid for his wife's safety and her mental well-being. And he wanted answers, but no one was giving him answers. Nobody said what this thing was. Nobody said who they were. The men that interviewed him did not provide credentials, did not share names. In 1997, his wife took a fatal dose of sleeping pills, followed by a large amount of alcohol. And he has been alone since 1997. He has since moved almost 600-700 miles to an undisclosed location. That he doesn't want me to share. He doesn't even want me to say the name of the state. But, yeah. And that is why he didn't like me. Because he thought that because of the shall we, and because I had, an upbeat kind of personality, that I didn't take it serious until, years later. And he realized that, I did, and a few other channels did. But he's disgusted with like the whole research and the whole everything. And he doesn't trust the government anymore. And it took him 30-something years to share this with somebody other than his family. His son was cremated without his and his wife's consent. He was just told. And it's just disgusting what these law enforcement officials, whether it be state, federal, did to him and his family. It's even worse when you add up the thing that he doesn't have his son and now his wife. That was Jesse's encounter. That was Jesse's experience. So talking to him at the end of all this, I really enjoyed talking with him about everything that happened. And he relayed a lot of information. And, it was funny that he despised me because of the whole "shall we" thing. And now, like, we talked for 4 hours, and just a really nice guy, a really amazing person. He has since gone to that location. He has, like I said, moved out of that area. Takes him about a day from where he lives now to get to Marshall County, where everything happened. But yeah, it's an unbelievable and disgusting experience, that what they did to him, what they did to his wife, and the saddest thing that he said to me during that conversation wasn't the fact that he lost his son and later lost his wife. The thing that made him break down the worst was that his son, it's almost like his son will never be remembered because it was blocked out of history. There was no news write-up. There was nothing. He almost said that he wishes that he disagreed with what they said, because at least that way his son's memory would be, there would be some sort of mention of his son's passing, even if it meant that he looked like he was the perpetrator of it. It was really sad. I wasn't ready for that conversation. That's for sure. But I am glad that I had it, because I made a new friend, and I hope it helped him. I really do. I told him, if you ever need to talk, text me. I'll text you back. So, I don't know. It's crazy. It is crazy. Anyway, wow. Guys, thank you for supporting this channel. Your support is really what makes this channel so special, and really what makes it special for people like him, people like Jesse, to come on and, share with me, to share with you, because he knows that there won't be any judgment. He's doesn't live in fear today of the Dogman or the government. He just doesn't want to, he just doesn't want to share his location of where he is, because he doesn't live in fear. He lives in distrust of them. So even though he and I both know that there is a digital mark for anyone that uses the internet, but I don't know. Poor guy. Wow. I don't even know what else to say. I gotta end this. So after the upload, or yeah, after me and him talking and then me recording this, it was just, I had to make coffee. I had to sit down. I hugged both my daughters. Can't imagine what it'd be like to lose a child like that. But you know, the craziest thing about that whole thing is how the Dogman took his child. Like a sack of potatoes or a football just crouched in his arm, like a running back would run with a football. But then it dropped and it was only using 3 arms while holding his son. Damn these things. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed the second half as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'd like to thank you all for supporting this channel. It is, after all, your support that helps this channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those that you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.